Champions of Psychology is meant as education and entertainment. It is not a substitute for medical advice or professional counseling. Discussion of mental health topics will be primarily rooted in research and the personal experiences and self-disclosures of the hosts. While we can provide generalized education and possible mental health resources, we cannot offer any recommendations, advice, or opinions for any specific persons, cases, or situations. We provide these resources and links at our sole discretion, but have not necessarily vetted or reviewed any resource. We assume no liability for the use of the information or resources on these sites, and we encourage you to use your own best judgment.
Hello, and welcome to Champion Psychology, a show with the goal of openly talking about mental health and gaming presented by Codename Entertainment. I'm one of your glorious-looking hosts today, Treavor Bettis, and with me each week is the glorious...
Mitra Jordan. I like being called glorious, and I would like to point out that I am certainly resting on our laurels today at episode 100.
I'm resting on my wife's black diamonds of gothiness.
I'm just impressed with the whole witchy crown situation you have going over there. It's really lovely. It's doing it. It's working. It's awesome.
And I had to unblur my background for y'all to see it, so you can see all my lovely random figures that I have now as well. So
yeah, I think it's great to get a look into your space.
Yes.
You know, such that you have not allowed us to have before, which I get it.
Yes.
Hey, no shame.
We talked about clutter last week.
Yeah, we talked about clutter. We're going to talk a little more about it today, but not yet, right?
Yeah.
But I forgot to introduce myself.
Yeah. Introduce.
Oh my God. Okay. So I'm Mitra Jordan. I'm a registered clinical counselor working out of Victoria, BC. I see all sorts of people. I have a specialty, I guess, in somatic work, cross-cultural counseling, and trauma. And that's about it. Yes.
Yeah.
Good. So, and we've been here for 100 episodes.
Yeah.
So if you know, etc.
100 episodes. I cannot believe it. I mean, obviously, we are sad to not have Dr. B here with us for it. You know, who knows? Maybe he'll pop into chat. But we've had 100 awesome, fun discussions about some really important stuff, and I'm really happy we got to do this.
Same.
Yeah.
It's been absolutely lovely. It's been a pleasure to share and to listen and to hear all your questions too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and speaking of questions, that is what we're here to do because, you know, over the last few seasons, we made it kind of a thing that the season finale, we'd catch up on a few questions that we missed throughout the season. And so we've gone ahead and grabbed a few of those. And we're going to talk about them. So we're going to start back at the first episode of this season, which was growing up with ADHD. Mal, you know, it would have been really funny when I grabbed all of these questions to like look at the names and kind of parse them out in my head so that I could not do it live on the show. But here I am again. Malfia Smaragd.
Malefia Smaragdia?
There we go. I like that one.
Try.
I like it.
Yes, we're trying.
So again, this was growing up with ADHD. They say, I would like to ask, I'm in my late 30s and my husband suggests I might have ADHD, but I'm wondering if a diagnosis will actually help me. Thank you.
Right. So as someone who had a later in life diagnosis, I can speak to this personally, and I can certainly also speak to it professionally. So from a personal perspective, what I think it offered was some way to name my experience and to name aspects of my experience with ADHD that I hadn't realized were related to ADHD. In other words, to sort of fill out that jigsaw puzzle a bit.
Yeah.
And to then also be able to explore some of the tools and solutions that people have come up with and that professionals suggest, and also to recognize that the behavioral manifestations of ADHD are not my fault.
Yeah.
And I don't need to personalize them.
Yeah.
They are a fact of my biology in some ways, my genetics, because 2 of my kids have ADHD as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so having the compassion for other people with ADHD, and also aiming that compassion and greater understanding, I guess, towards myself, was personally very helpful to me
Yeah.
in both advocating for myself as someone with ADHD, making room for the ADHD experience in my life so I could better cope with some of the challenges we all have. For one, it really explained why I have such an issue with forms and even with paperwork. And therefore, it's helped me kind of optimize how to cope with those things.
Yeah.
So from a professional perspective, I can really see the same thing with clients. It's like puzzle pieces sort of drop into place. Clients are then able to not personalize it as this is my fault. Why am I like this? You know, I'm a terrible person. I'm lazy. I'm not smart. I'm this, I'm that. You know, I was terrible at school. Like they could take all of that noise and pain that they experienced and recognize that actually this is a condition, it's a disability, it's an ongoing factor in your life. And let's figure out how you can manage it without feeling so bad about yourself.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and like I do think that the along with the diagnosis, the learning about what it is, that is like kind of I think the biggest thing, because like I grew up knowing that I had ADD. You know, that's when they called it that. But no one told me what it was. It wasn't until I talked to you and Dr. B that I really learned what ADHD was, and I was like, oh, okay, all of these things that I've been trying to like get better about, that's just how it is. And that was, I mean, like, you know, I knew I had it the whole time, but not knowing what that meant, that was big. That did change a lot of stuff. So like, even though I did know, I do still feel like I, as an adult, I, you know, it wasn't until I was an adult that I fully understood what that meant. And that is big, and that is kind of, it puts the world in a new perspective.
yeah, I also think that if you have a diagnosis and therefore a condition to refer to, ongoing research is something that you can then refer to. Like, I know I have ADHD. I can look at what's out there.
Yeah.
I can look at what new learnings there are. I can look at what's useful to someone in my situation. And I can consider as a professional too, ADHD along the different life stages. I wish for you that much earlier you had known exactly what the diagnosis meant. And I think a lot of younger people with ADHD now do get much more support in the schools, because I also think teachers had no idea what it was.
Oh yeah, no.
And there was a lot of judgment around medication and kids, as in some ways we should be watching out with what we're medicating our kids. But I think there's a great deal more understanding and support, so kids don't feel like I'm singled out, I'm wrong in some way, I'm flawed in some way, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So, so that's.
There you go. Yeah, we're trying to keep the answers a little bit short this episode so that we can get through them. But yeah, no, I think that is So yeah, it can help. But that is a decision that you have to come to on your own. This next one was from the ADHD and relationships episode, and hey, this question came from the Dr. B. Question: how do you navigate ADHD being an excuse versus a legit reason for challenges in relationships?
So I think this is a really great question. There's such a difference between an excuse and an explanation, to my mind. So an excuse can be like, well, this is just the way I am. I have ADHD, so, you know.
Yeah, get used to it.
You cope with it. Yeah, exactly. If you're presenting it as a legit reason for challenge, you're the most active participant, in fact, in managing that challenge. You're saying, hey, this is something that happens for me. These are some of the, behaviors. I'm really trying to work on them. Here's some solutions I've come up with to cope with them. Here's some maybe additional care and understanding I require, but I'm prepared to take responsibility. So if I interrupt, okay, I know it's a thing I do. I'm really sorry. I'm working on that. Right? Not I interrupt and, hey, I have ADHD, you're just going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right? So that, I would say, is how you manage an excuse versus a legit reason.
I mean, even just times with friends and stuff, like I will catch that I'm doing it, and like I'll have started an interjection. I'm just like, no, you go.
Sorry, brain moment. Yeah.
So the one after that was from ADHD and medication. This was the Thor out first. Question: what about side effects? So this was kind of. We were spending the episode talking about the different types of medication and what they can do for you and everything like that. And this was kind of a broad question about side effects in general. And
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it's a good thing to look out for. Like that, you should get a paper
Right.
that says it.
Yeah. So what really helps is if you can bring people who are close to you into the situation.
Hmm.
And also, if maybe, even if you're not a journaler, but I'd say, especially if you live alone and maybe, or you've moved cities or something, anyway, you don't have a lot of people nearby who know your history, definitely have online then, like,
Yeah.
have meetings with friends, do Zoom, whatever, FaceTime, you need other eyes
Hmm.
on the situation pretty much with any medication that is known for its side effects. So this goes for ADHD meds, it goes for antidepressants. Um, Most ADHD meds that are stimulant medications will work quite quickly.
Hmm.
That's one of the good things about them. So you can try out an ADHD med for as short as a week or two, see if it's suiting you, and go back to the clinic, the professional, the online health provider, whoever you have, and change meds if need be.
Yeah.
So you need to look for what's happening for you. So the main effect we're looking for, of course, is better focus,
Hmm.
and being able to manage our distractibility, bring ourselves back to what we're focusing on. Some of the side effects can look like major loss of appetite, or the medication is making you feel jittery, maybe the dose isn't right.
Hmm.
So, but talk to people who are close to you.
Yeah.
That it's really hard to assess from within because the differences can feel quite subtle if the medication's working well. But those in your life will be like, you've been on time the last 3 days, or that really boring task that I know you would have procrastinated about before, you're
Yeah.
doing,
Yeah.
right? So we want to, we want to look at how are we doing, and spouses, partners, even kids and friends can be great resources in terms of how we're doing, as long as your kids aren't young.
Yeah.
My kids are adults and are quite happy to tell me if things aren't going well.
Yeah.
So,
Now the
mhm.
because while when we did that episode, I was still in the middle of doing different trials of meds and stuff like that. Now I'm situated on one. But there was, essentially what I did was I knew the side effects, and I had my wife look at the paper that came for them with side effects as well, so that she could look out for them, like me, in case there was something going on that I didn't notice. One of the medications, when we switched dosages, when we went to the higher one, I took it, and that day, like one of the side effects they said it was nervousness, and man, they were right. And it hit
Yeah,
hard. And like I had to leave work. Like I just told everybody, I'm like, I'm literally just at my desk, like freaking out about everything. They understood. And I messaged my doctor, and I was like, hey, I
yeah.
think I'm having this nervous thing. This is what's going on with me. And they're like, do not continue to take that. We're if take the lower dosage one, and we'll figure out the next step. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. One thing I will add about ADHD meds that I wasn't told when I started taking them is that some of them really work better in terms of your response to them if you have some protein,
Yes.
or something to eat in the morning when you take them or
Yeah.
before you take them. So just keep that in mind. I had a strong emotional reaction to one particular medication, and I was just kind of a weepy mess actually.
Yeah.
And it was Dr. B who said, "Oh, I was told you really need to take protein when you take that one." And I was like, I wasn't told. That would have been helpful. So just keeping things like that in mind.
Yeah.
There is a current question I quickly want to look at. Star Chaser 43, thank you. Is there a good layman's book about ADD and how it changes through the stages of life? Okay, so I haven't finished the book. I
Mhm.
can't tell you as much about stages of life, but Guess what came in the mail?
Hey, I got that book.
This book is excellent and it's very personal. And in terms of a layman's book, Jessica's very clear
Mm-hmm.
that although she has a lot of expertise with ADHD and has learned a great deal, enough to write a really excellent book, she did start very much from a layman's perspective. And she certainly has used some excellent resources, researchers, experts in the field, psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I highly recommend that one. Um,
There
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 are,
was another one that you recommended to me that I picked up and I found pretty good. I can't remember. I have to go to my Amazon to see which one it was that I bought. But yeah, you have a couple other ones I think though, right? That
I
are
do, but I
the
can't think
irony.
right now. The irony, exactly. It's like,
Er,
what?
oh,
Yeah.
it was taking charge of adult ADHD. This was Russell Barkley.
Oh,
Um,
Russell Barkley's stuff in
yep.
general. Russ Barkley is on YouTube, just as Jessica McCabe is. Highly, highly recommend. He has a neuroscience background. He was a professional for many, many years, and his area of expertise is ADHD. He talks with great clarity and, again, is a wonderful bridge from the scientific world to
Yeah.
us who are not experts in that way. And he just talks a great deal about ADHD, and he certainly deals with the different life stages, particularly on his YouTube channel. He'll talk about children and adults and all that.
I won't be surprised if folks out there in the chat have seen this guy, because if you have any kind of ADHD stuff that pops up in your like Instagram reel feed, if you've seen an older guy with a white beard that's talking about ADHD, that's him. He comes through my feed regularly from talks that he's given, and it's really good stuff. So yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Let's see. We're going to drop down to creativity. This was a episode where we were just talking about being creative and what we do with that. This was from Vaxtum. Question, not really a question. Oh, more of a comment. It seems like a lot of the discussion of appreciation slash validation for a creative outlet is tied to an explicit audience other than yourself. Please say more about creativity for personal expression gratification alone. And that's very fair. Like we did kind of get turned to, like, the fact that a lot of creativity nowadays is something that people use to do something online or anything like that. And I do think that it is really important to have a creative outlet that isn't for anyone else but yourself. Like
Absolutely.
literally right now I'm in the midst of like trying to find something like that I can do that's just for me, that I'm not going to be like posting everywhere and stuff like that. And like I've kind of narrowed it down to like attempting drawing again, the thing that I try to do what seems like every 4 years. And photography. I did photography a bunch as a kid, and I really loved it. I actually had a first place photo in the county fair. For like third graders. And, but I recently found an old digital camera that it was a Nikon that I say digital, but like it was because this was the era where film cameras were moving into digital cameras, so it's fairly old, but it's still got a nice lens on it and everything. And so I'm like, well, maybe I'll fix this thing up and go shoot some pictures that I haven't done in a long time. So
Yeah, I think that one of the advantages of creativity for personal expression slash gratification is that you don't have to be good.
mm-hmm.
There is so much pressure when you take something that there's external validation. And we talked, I think, about the stressors of external validation, how, people might say, oh, you're so good at cooking, start your own restaurant, or, especially in an age and at a time where it's not always easy. Sometimes people have more than one job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea of sort of doing a side hustle that's of something you really like is quite tempting,
Yeah.
right? And we all know about writing and how writers will write on the side until they can publish. And even then,
I
writing might
don't
not
know
be a
what you're
full-time
talking
thing.
about, Mitra.
So, I think that the external, we are social beings, so external validation is something we often reach
Yeah.
for. So I think that when you do things just for yourself, that's really about filling your cup.
Yes.
And
That's yes.
that's really important. So I want to talk a little bit about the notion of sanctuary and sanctuary activities, of which there are really broadly, a sanctuary activity can be an activity you share with another person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it can be that bedtime routine you have with your kid where you read this book you love. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's something just you and that person share, or it's something you might share in a family way. But a sanctuary activity can also be something that you retreat to for your own mental health, for your own interest and curiosity. You know, for instance, a lot of people started to bake bread.
Mm-hmm.
And they
Yeah.
did that, you know, mainly during the pandemic. Some people
Mm-hmm.
have kept it up, some haven't. Seen a lot of mixers on Facebook Marketplace. Um, but, you know, I think the idea there was this was this wholesome, comforting thing. Sourdough in particular,
Yep.
sourdough starters need protection and need presence and need to be fed at the right times, like a
Seeing what
baby,
that looked
really.
like made me decide not to do it.
Yeah, pretty much. And I was a professional chef and made bread lots. And no, I know what a sourdough starter wants, and it wants me to get up at 3 a.m. And I've had kids. I've had them. Thank you. There was plenty of 3 a.m. and oh God, I gotta stretch myself again, you know. So no. But my point here is for some people, the immersement or immersion
Mm-hmm.
and the interest and the trying something new and the making something that was tasty, even if it was kind of weirdly misshapen or not perfect, was such a reward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the piece
Yeah.
around sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
It's stuff that is rewarding and pleasurable, and that the gift of the and the validation is you doing the thing,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And you feeling good about the thing, and you being able to refer to your previous attempts and the improvement that you have, but you're the measure,
Yeah.
not someone outside of you. So the measure is, I made a loaf, it was barely inedible, but you know, my fifth bake, and it tastes really great.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we can see the improvement. So measurable improvement that is just our own excitement about a world we just want to dive into, immersion in a process. That's sanctuary.
Yeah. I like that.
And that's the value, that's the personal gratification we're talking about. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Let's see. The next one was when you need help. The Dr. B has another question here. Question aside
Catty
from
guy.
so yeah, for just real quick recap, this was, you know, the an episode where we talked about like how you might decide that you need to go to therapy or find help in that way. And Dr. B said, question, aside from how to know there's a problem, how do you know when it's fixed? And it was fixed in quotations.
Yeah. A couple of things. So first of all, if you are going to therapy, the therapist will actually ask, what would fixed look like for you? Like, what would you be experiencing that would let you know that this problem was either manageable, as in under control? Like, I want to deal with my anxiety, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
My anxiety's run away. I'm having so much trouble. It's really distressing. What do I do?
Yeah.
Right. And so the goal is managing the anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
The fix is finding tools that will help you do that, whether it's medication, whether it's slowing down, medication, meditation, therapy, you know, bringing alliances in, being able to talk to people about it versus feeling ashamed. Like, these are all some of the tools you might learn to use
Yeah.
that would help with that. So fixed is, I'm able to cope with my anxiety. My anxiety isn't stopping me from doing things I want to do.
Yeah.
You know, I can go downtown. I can visit friends. I can take that course I always wanted to take, but, you know, I was freaked out about sitting in a
Mm-hmm.
classroom because I had a terrible time in grade school and, you know, never left me. Right.
Yeah.
So fixed would look like my distress isn't stopping me, preventing me from living a fuller life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, there are other, it's always dependent on the circumstances. So maybe your finances or other things make it challenging. But if you have a specific thing you're working on, it's like, now I'm not experiencing distress
Mm-hmm.
that stops me from living. So it's distress versus ease.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually haven't gotten to say it on the show, but like I've been got a new therapist recently, and it's been wonderful. Like at the beginning of the show, 100 episodes ago, like I talked about having a therapist that wasn't helping me, and like genuinely this time around, like honestly within the first session, just been like, oh, okay, didn't think about it that way, and that's all I'm gonna be thinking about for the rest of the day. Cool, 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 cool. So it's yeah,
Yeah.
the progress is something that feels great, and then it has been a question in my head, like even though it's still early on, I'm just like, what does that look like? And so even for me, like as the host of the show, like it's good to know of like what things to look for when it comes to progress with difficulties that I'm having, especially with anxiety and stuff like that. So that's good for me to know too.
Yeah. It sounds like you felt a sense of safety and trust with
Oh
your
yeah,
therapist.
absolutely. I mean, this person is genuinely fantastic. Hilariously, I've not told them that I am on a show talking about mental health. But no, it's been really good, and they've been helping me out a lot. They also specialize in ADHD stuff, so it's really nice talking about problems that I'm having, and the person going, oh, well, that lines up with this aspect of ADHD, so that makes sense that you're having that. I'm like, okay, cool.
And that is actually one of the other advantages of a diagnosis, is then being able to focus your search for therapy on
Yeah.
someone who actually has expertise in that area,
Yeah.
right? Whatever area it needs to be. If you know that your person works with that population, understands it, has experience with it, with either clients or even personal experience with it, you know that you're going to be in a place where it's compassionate towards that condition or issue. It's
Exactly.
helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been really good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the one after that we got was this was actually the creativity episode that we did with Aaron. And
Mm-hmm.
so for this, Mars actually wrote in this question in the little question doc that we had, and I didn't see it until later, which is also the trend for the question after this one. But what I did was I actually sent this question to Aaron, and she sent me a response. So Mars said, what, if any, exercises or sources of inspiration do you turn to when you hit a mental block and need to push through it? So now I'm going to go to Aaron and mine's chat and scroll up since it scrolled down on me. This is what Aaron had to say. Okay. I find there are two types of mental blocks: out of gas and can't find the door. If you're feeling like you just don't have any energy to be creative, or even like you've just forgotten how, often I find that means I need to sort a few things. What is? Sorry, my eyes are not doing this. I need to sort of fill my well. So this is like what you were saying, like with
To
filling the
sort of
cup.
fill your well.
Yep.
Yeah.
This happens most when I haven't been making time to read, or I haven't read anything new for a while. Comfort reads are great, but I find they don't charge me up as much as new ones do, personally. So it's worth taking some time to fill back up. Alternatively, you're tired. Go get rest. If you're feeling like you just can't figure out what comes next and you're banging your head against the wall, or like this is in parentheses, or like you got into a room and now you can't find where the door to the next room is, then I would say you need to shake it up. Something is not working, and this is your subconscious telling you that. Sometimes it helps to get an outside reader. Sometimes I like writing in a whole different tense or point of view. A little first person present tense noodling sometimes helps uncover the emotional beats I might have forgotten to add. Sometimes I need to just think out what happens if I throw it out, or if I throw out the things I have already decided on. Story changes, and it happens all the time that some set pieces or events no longer has the right shape. Most of all, remember that this is temporary. You cannot break yourself or run out of creativity. Then so that she added this one at the bottom, and we normally don't swear at the show, but I'm going to. Also the write it really shitty exercise.
Yeah.
So this is a thing that Erin does that I love, where she will. Because most of the time people are like, oh God, what if I write this and it's just not good? And so what she does is challenge herself to write it poorly. So like
Yeah.
instead of trying to write it the best she can, try to write it the poorest she can.
So actually use creative
Reverse psychology.
reverse psychology. That's really great. That's really great. And I
Yeah.
think it can be really fun as well. Yeah. Do you remember NaNoWriMo? I remember when it first came out. I think it's become like a real production. But anyway,
Oh
back
yeah.
in the day, the thing I remember the most about it was the tagline: "No plot, no problem." And the idea of just sitting down and doing the thing without putting pressure on yourself. But I don't know how that lands for you as someone who does write.
Like, well, I mean, like, this is definitely the thing where, like, this is definitely person dependent. When you're asking,
Hmm.
when I find that you're asking someone else in a creative field that you are in advice on stuff like this, it's more of like you're getting suggestions and finding the thing that works for you. So like,
Hmm.
while
Hmm.
I really enjoy the whole like write it shitty thing, I that's not gonna do the thing for me. Changing the tense, that might work, though I hate first person present tense. It literally pains me and I don't know why. Um but definitely doing things that are changing up what's going on, or especially if I'm in an outlining phase and I'm like the project that I'm working on right now. I actually started over a year ago, and I had an outline for it and everything like that, and I couldn't. There was the last act just wasn't working,
Hmm.
and literally was taking a shower a few weeks ago, and I was just like, well, what if I just didn't do that and just did something completely different in that act instead? And then that made me go, that was completely the problem. It was the fact that
Hmm.
it wasn't working. And so I needed to do something completely different, not try to change what was there, but just remove that completely and do something more.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it comes down to like different ways of working on stuff, but the refilling the well, I do think, is a big thing, especially while
Yeah.
you're in the process of writing the project, because I'm an outliner, so like I know what's gonna happen before I sit down and I start writing that book. Things could
Mm.
change as I'm going and stuff like that, but the act of button chair, hand on keyboard, that's one of those things that you can get burnt out on doing, especially if you're doing it every
Totally.
day. If you're
Yeah.
having I can know what's going to happen, and it can still, those words could just not be flowing that day. and
Yeah.
and so maybe I do need to be like, okay, you know what, instead of just trying to force this, I'm gonna go play a game for 30 minutes. I'm gonna clear my head, or I might do a meditation or something like that.
Yeah.
And
Taking a break is good.
yeah,
Yeah.
but taking a break that refills, and I think that is
Exactly.
the
Not
thing.
just
Yes.
distract.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, when I was doing my master's thesis, like it was button chair, hand on keyboard a lot of the time. But when I took breaks, um, there was so little out there at the time on third culture kids, which is kids who've had key experiences, developmental experiences in different countries other than their
Mm-hmm.
passport countries. And so we were talking about, finding a sense of home. That's essentially what my thesis was about. And so, first person accounts, talking to close friends who were third culture
Mm-hmm.
kids. Like I would take breaks that didn't take me completely out of
Yeah.
my topic, but that were just allowed me to refresh my perspective and just consider the personal, which kind of could reinvigorate
Yeah.
my
Well,
reasons for doing it,
yeah.
aside from, oh my God, I need to get this degree and be done with it, So you have to kind of have both. But in terms of filling the cup, and doing things that are just for you,
Mm-hmm.
reminding myself I didn't have to. was really helpful. Like, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because it gives me pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm doing this because it enriches me. Is it doing that right now? No. Probably it will again.
Yeah.
But if I'm super frustrated, and this comes up with sewing all the time, the 8th time I'm using my seam ripper because I put the sleeve in backwards or some such thing, I'm just like, you know what? I want to torch this entire thing
Yeah.
entirely.
Yeah.
Which did not happen with this dress, I have to say. I'm very pleased.
There you go.
So yeah, but this is the second iteration of the dress. The first time I made it, there was some confusion. So I think there's also the when I'm doing a new thing piece, right? When we're trying to do something that is different and therefore more challenging for us, we might experience more mental blocks. And so really reminding yourself as well that, oh, I'm kind of trying to up my game here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a learning curve. How am I gonna stay regulated through that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Well, the thing that you mentioned though that I thought was interesting was the kind of refilling yourself on the project that you're working on stuff. That's actually what I decided this notebook's going to be. I had this outlandish idea at one point to handwrite the first draft of this project. I've heard a lot of people talk about doing that, and I don't think I'm going to do that. But what I am going to use this for is kind of a write along journal where as I'm writing here at my computer and stuff, when I'm not at my computer, if I get the need to think more about what I was writing that day or what I'm going to be writing the next day, I'm going to write it down in here. And I'm also going to kind of keep track of kind of a thought journal of it too, of I really loved today's scene and stuff like that. And so kind of a way to keep me in a good mindset while writing this. So.
And you can also observe, because I often suggest that clients journal things,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a way to witness your own thought process.
Yeah.
That's what essentially counseling provides, that witnessing where you, the client, can hear yourself. And then, of course, the counselor can kind of both recap and expand on some of what you're sharing and also bring things together thematically for you, which is really hard to do when it's your stuff. But when you journal, you have the opportunity to do some of that. And that journaling process, because writing takes longer, can actually really help slow you down.
Mm-hmm.
And when we slow down, we can actually reflect better and we create a gap between action and reaction.
Yeah.
So somebody on here, let me see, had a question about anger management.
Yeah, I was
and
going to do that one thing, but
recognizing
we can do that one here.
reactions.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that it's really hard and not really appropriate professionally for me to say, yes, these medications or that medication for emotional regulation. And this is because I think that emotional regulation is really quite context dependent.
Yeah.
As in what's happening with your life. Anxiety can be an issue, depression can be an issue, other medications you're taking can be an issue, trauma or a history of trauma catching up with you can be an issue, being in a difficult relational situation can be an issue. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's very personal. However, for some people, meditation can really help. Journaling can really help. Exercise can really help. Because and in terms of exercises and things that you can do physically, and I think you're asking both sort of physically, but also emotionally, what are the things that I can do? In terms of kind of calming down or coping with mood, somatic therapy helps you have a greater emotional awareness about what it is you're feeling and how those feelings manifest in your body. If you're beginning to sort of catch shortly after, then those are great instances where you can look at what was going on before.
Yeah.
I'll often ask or share with people that, hey, how can you be kind to yourself if you're feeling a little bit raw? If you're feeling a little bit raw or you have stressors in the day, you're probably going to have a shorter fuse.
Yeah.
Just look at what's happening for you that is likely to lead to that.
Yeah.
And consider then, how can you be kind to yourself? How can you take things off your schedule that day? How can you maybe even share with people that you need a little more time alone? Or are there tasks you can do where you can be by yourself? Are there tasks you can do that are a little bit more physical? It'll help you work through the adrenaline in your system, that can also kind of end up reaching that fight flight, bit where you end up kind of saying or doing things you don't want to. So it's partly trying to protect yourself and your relationships with other people by giving yourself a little space if you can. Journaling is another one, because again, we can deal with our reactive feelings without actually having a reaction.
And
we
then
want to
analyze
create a
them.
gulf. Yeah, we want to create a gulf between the feeling state that leads to reactivity and the emotional, like what we're feeling underneath of that. And also the action state. So we want to recognize the feeling state, the reasons for the emotions, and then a gap between that and the action, because otherwise it can feel like reactivity, action, boom, we're off.
Yep.
We want reactivity, pause. What action do I want to do instead? So it's just, I hope that's useful. Please understand that a professional who's more familiar with your context is going to be helpful in a less general way and more specific way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this is my personal experience. This is not advice or anything like that. This is when I was going through the because I don't know if this is related to ADHD. I think that was when the question came in.
Right.
But when I was going through with the pill trials and stuff, they were like, okay, well, what's not working with this? And then I listed some stuff off, and one of them was, I'm still feeling emotional dysregulation, and they were very blunt and were just like, this is not gonna help with that. You need to go to therapy for that one. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll talk to my therapist about that one. That was that was another one of those things where I went in not fully knowing what to expect from these things and kind of assigning my own expectation of what it would do. So, it was kind of nice getting the blunt way of doing that, because I was like, okay, well, cool. I can talk to my therapist about that. I don't know if the person that wrote in with this has the access to that or anything like that. But yes, talking to a trained professional about the options for these things is going to be a much better way. But
definitely. Now, Russ Barkley does have a really good video on executive function and some of the executive function challenges that occur with ADHD and the times which are more challenging than others. And so, for instance, if you are using medication with ADHD, it wears off in the evening.
Yep.
And therefore, you might have reduced executive function at that point if you're tired, if you haven't slept, if you haven't eaten, as in all the other times when a person might experience reduced effective executive function, whether they have ADHD or not, apply here. So we actually did an episode on executive function, I believe.
Yeah, I think we did.
A couple
Pretty
of
sure we
seasons
did.
ago. Yeah, probably on YouTube someplace or on a podcast somewhere. You can certainly find it. But yeah, I think that kind of covers that one.
Yeah. All right. We got one more question. This was from the last episode on clutter. And once again, Mars put a question in the doc, and I didn't see it until after we were off the air. Sorry about that, Mars. This is Mars says, for those of us who attach experiences to objects, what are some ways one could declutter without losing precious memories? Parentheses, I've started taking pictures of things to help let them go. This hit hard for me, because I understand this fully. In fact, I actually did message Mars after the show when I saw this. I'm like, hey, we'll try and get this on the next week's episode, but I'm going to give you a thing real quick. I did 100% do the photo thing for a little while. But I found that I didn't go back and look at them. It was the thing where I realized it was kind of like trial by fire, where I went, oh no, I still have those memories without the object that, I don't necessarily need to have a picture of it. And so the last time that I was going through stuff and everything of because this was only stuff from my childhood that was doing this, stuff from my 20s and into my 30s and stuff like that. I don't really have this sort of thing with it, but as a kid, there were these, toys and stuff like that that really meant a lot to me and everything. And I did kind of ascribe a connection to those, and they had memories with it, but I didn't. I still had those without the photo or the item, and sometimes I may forget to think about them or anything like that. But when I found that when they did pop up, when they weren't, when it wasn't around, when it wasn't in my view, and I did remember it, it kind of meant more to me when I did. And yeah, yeah. So that's what I have to say about the photo one. But you have a whole list of things here
I
that I think are
do.
really
I
good.
do. So first of all, one that's actually not on my list, but I think is significant. Sometimes we keep collections of things,
Hmm.
right? And it's too much. As in, we just don't have the space.
Yep.
We feel a little overrun. And so we want to, I think that if you had, say, tons of Lego sets, from your childhood,
Hmm.
or you've now bought tons of Lego because Lego was so important in your
Hmm.
childhood, pick one thing. If you're not going to be using the Lego,
Yeah.
pick one thing that you want to keep, whether it be a figure that you made or, any one of the, like, it's hard to pick one thing because it's like picking a favorite child, but
Oh
what's
yeah.
emblematic for you,
Yeah.
right? And then finding if possible, if you can give the object a new home, that's great.
Yes.
So, for instance, my kids had my cousin's trains, the wooden Brio train sets from
Yeah.
childhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
My kids had those trains when they were little, and should my cousin have a child, that set is going right back to him, so that his kids can enjoy it. And then perhaps someday I'll have a grandchild or two, and that set will come back.
Yeah.
So that set's going to crisscross the country, but
Hmm.
it's going to be used where it's needed. So is it possible that the object has legacy value, and that's probably related to why you might be having trouble letting it go? So if it does, if there's somewhere that it can be used, that'd be great. Another idea is the one last outing idea. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
kind of a ratty t-shirt, but you love it a lot. Wear it one last time. Wear it to games night with your friends. Wear it somewhere, where you can enjoy it, but it doesn't matter that it's ratty, but give it an outing. If it's a clothing item, if it's something you love, and if you can fit into it, give it an outing. If it's a clothing item and it doesn't fit, but it has nostalgic value, can it be altered, and is that worth it?
Hmm.
Might be, right? Um, T-shirt quilts are great for graphic tees that you have a history with. You can cut out the front part, get rid of the rest. They take up way less space that way. And keep them for a T-shirt quilt if it means something to you. But do something about it. Don't just keep it in a Rubbermaid container for forever. Take it in so that it can be used. And maybe talk to someone who does T-shirt quilting. I might be wrong about how you're supposed to prepare the material or if you should at all, but it's worth talking to someone who does that,
Hmm.
if that's a thing you want to do. A show and tell with the object, which is similar to one last outing. Have some friends over and maybe do a shared sentimental objects we're getting rid of night.
Hmm.
Things that are transportable, I guess. So maybe that big armchair isn't a good one, but things that are transportable where you can kind of talk about what the object meant to you.
Yeah.
Because part of this is it's not just your relationship in the current moment, it's your history with the thing.
Hmm.
And why it was important and when and how did it get used and what did it mean to you. So it's worth kind of doing that and then make a decision. If you're ready to let go, you have to do the letting go.
Yes. Yeah.
And you can also reward yourself for letting go. You can be like, okay, we gave it a really good send off, because I think part of it is when things get removed abruptly from our life,
Yeah.
that grief process, which of course is tough anyway, can also make it tough to get rid of other things. Someone who's moved countries but has now accumulated stuff may have a really hard time getting rid of that stuff,
Hmm.
right? Someone who has lost everything but then reaccumulated may ascribe value somewhat indiscriminately to everything
Yeah.
and thus make it hard to get rid of.
Hmm.
So get some help with it if you're really having trouble letting go. Get some help where you get it witnessed, you get to talk about it,
Yeah.
and you get to say goodbye to it, and then the other person hauls it off to the donation
Yeah.
center rather,
Well, well, and like what you were saying there, like and Mars, I'm talking directly to you because I know you have a wonderful partner. One of the things that like I will do, like when I was going through the toy boxes and stuff like that, because they were in, they were with my mom's stuff and everything. Like I would like if there was one that really meant something to me, like I'd show it to my wife and be like, this thing was like my favorite damn toy. Like this thing, I built so many stories around him. He lost complete meaning to what what he originally was, and I just made this new character with it. And so, like, you know, that's something that I'll do occasionally, is like, you know I'm going to give it up, but you know, I want to talk about it one last time, sort of thing like that. So yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. And old toys that are in good condition, jigsaw puzzles that still have everything, books that you loved but have no one to pass them to. These are, women's shelters,
oh yeah,
food banks will sometimes take this stuff,
yeah, no,
so if it matters, consider where it's going if possible.
yeah,
But don't stress out too much. At some point, we have to let go and trust that an object will find its way where
yes,
it's needed.
yes,
So
100%. All right. Well, that is all the time that we got for our 100th episode.
amazing.
Still cannot believe it. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and you know, all the other days that you have joined us, or if this is your first time, hey, we're not done yet. We're gonna do more episodes, but we are gonna take a break. Don't know how long it's going to be, as per usual, but we will eventually be back with more episodes talking about mental health and gaming and all that fun stuff. So you know, keep an eye out on the Twitch schedules and all of that fun stuff. So we'll be back. But Mitra, if people wanted to find you on the interwebs, where could they do so?
They can find me at the site that used to be a word that was a bird that rhymed with bitter. It's now it vexes me and it hexes me, and you know what I mean. Anyway, that one. Also at Mitra Jordan, at the bitter, and mitrajordan.com is my professional website where people can actually be in contact if they wish to. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can find my social media ghost on all of the social medias at the Treavor. There's
He's
a hiding
everywhere.
in there. I am, but like I'm not anymore. Like my name's
Yeah.
there, but like,
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's you know, that's gonna do it
Scale
for
back for mental health.
yes, seriously,
Yeah.
genuinely,
And take
100%.
care of yourselves, everyone. Be kind to yourselves and have a good summer.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
That's going to do it for this season of Champions of Psychology. So until the next one, take care of yourself.
Take good care. Bye-bye.
Champions of Psychology is meant as education and entertainment. It is not a substitute for medical advice or professional counseling. Discussion of mental health topics will be primarily rooted in research and the personal experiences and self-disclosures of the hosts. While we can provide generalized education and possible mental health resources, we cannot offer any recommendations, advice, or opinions for any specific persons, cases, or situations. We provide these resources and links at our sole discretion, but have not necessarily vetted or reviewed any resource. We assume no liability for the use of the information or resources on these sites, and we encourage you to use your own best judgment.